Hi. I wanted to talk a little bit about describing meditative experience. In Itlaq Foundation, we work with meditators in a phenomenological way to describe the experiences they have in practicing meditation, influenced by the tradition of Sufism. So I'm going to reference both of those things. And what I want to address briefly is what is description from a phenomenological perspective? Why do we do it? And how is it done? So first off, what's description? What does it mean to describe something? The Latin roots, and I like to start out with etymology, is describere. Literally means writing something down. So if we're talking about describing an experience, we're writing down an account of the experience. And in Husserl's phenomenology, Beschreibung means something very similar, right? Representing in words. So to describe an experience is to seek the best words possible that we can find to represent that experience. And in Husserl's phenomenology, there's a big distinction, a critical distinction between describing an experience that you've had versus explaining an experience. Because to describe is to seek to express what an experience is like. It's simply to give voice to what was an experience like for you, to give that kind of an account of something that's occurred. That's very different from explaining. Explaining gets into a bunch of other questions that I'll touch on, like why did something happen? What caused something to happen? What's a theory that explains what happened? All of that is related to Erklärung for Husserl. That's all about explanation. Description is just staying with the experience itself for me and looking for the best words possible to get that across. And when we describe an experience, we're looking for not to give a perfect account of an experience, if there were such a thing, but to find the words to paint a picture, to give an account of the way that experience is present for me within whatever limits it is. So if I meditated, the experience might have been foggy, it might have been startling and clear. I might have felt ambivalently, I might have felt euphoric, I might have felt bored. It might have been distinct, it might have been an indistinct experience in meditating. Whatever it was like, that's what I'm trying to convey in my description. Not to go beyond the way it is for me, not to try to seek to extend beyond the way the experience is with me, just the way it stands out to me. So to use a little more technical phenomenological language here, in describing an experience phenomenologically, we're not interested in generating theories or importing hypotheses into what we're writing. Description does not attempt causal explanation, so we're not trying to write about, well, why did things happen the way they did? Description seeks to avoid inferences, right? So we're not jumping beyond the way the experience is already with me. Instead, description focuses on what's directly given, meaning just the way the experience is present to me, and in a non-reductive manner. In other words, I'm not trying to turn my experience into a category. I'm not trying to match it up with some theory that I've heard. I'm not trying to put a label on it or to put it into a bucket of any kind. That would all be considered reductive from a phenomenological perspective. I'm simply trying to write about the what it was like-ness of the meditative experience that I've just had. And this takes a lot of practice. Why do I say that? Well, because it takes time to actually just slow down enough to even notice what just occurred? Like, what was it like? That actually takes pausing, right? I have to pause, and, distinguish between all my ideas about what's going on or what I imagine it might mean or all of that stuff, and slow down enough to say, okay, what was it actually like? What happened? Okay, well, I was sitting there. And at first, I noticed a lot of thoughts, or I was imagining various things, or I was thinking about, oh, I have to do my laundry after this, or whatever it was that was going on, right? And then, after a period of time where I was mostly absorbed in thoughts and images, things started to slow down, as if things slowed down. And then the experience was different. So you see, I'm on the way to giving a description. Right. Just what was it like? And it takes, like I said, it takes time to practice that because I may find my mind jumping to, oh, I wonder if this is like what I read about in this book about Ibn al-Arabi, or I wonder if this is like, and those are all fine questions. There's nothing wrong with those thoughts or questions. But in describing, we go, okay, let's hold off on that. Let's just come back to what was the experience itself like. So again, the other reason that describing takes time is because we have to sit still long enough, sit still long enough to actually be in touch with the experience we're describing. So I can't describe if I'm rushing around in the world, engaged in other activities. I have to sit down, pause, get in touch with what just happened if I just meditated, and speak or write from a place of being in touch with that. If I'm describing, it could be an experience that's long past. It might be describing, I sat in meditation 2 weeks ago and it's really stuck with me. Let me write about it. Or it might be, I literally just finished meditating 5 minutes ago and I'm going to write a few lines about what it was like. Either way, description. Uh, it means settling in enough to engage all of yourself. So, yeah, like, what did I, there's no checklist here, but was there any sensations involved? How did I feel? Like emotionally, was there an emotional, what was the feeling content of meditating today? All the whole, my point is here that your whole person is involved in describing. It's not just an intellectual activity. And when we describe, we want to use accessible everyday language. We're not looking for technical language. We're not looking for theoretical language. Um, we are simply looking to put into everyday words what it was like when I meditated. So what are the outcomes of doing this? Like, why? Why do it? So as you learn how to describe your meditative experience and practice describing, meaning, daily or at least a couple times a week when you sit, write a description. As your ability to describe deepens, you're going to find yourself spontaneously in greater contact with the experience of meditating itself. What just happened in your meditation is going to stand out even more deeply to you. And that's different from coming up with a theory about it. It's not going off and spinning a story about it. Just literally, you'll find yourself feeling yourself more in touch with what's happening in your meditative work. As that occurs, what happens or what happened in your meditative practice will stand out more as what it is. And this is a little bit tricky to say clearly, but what I mean is that you'll get even more of a sense of what you've already experienced. Time gets a little bit weird here because you may find that a past experience stands out to you even more vividly as you describe it. So it's not uncommon for people, when they really learn how to describe, to find that past sensations or emotions or the felt sense of an experience, even if it's long past, even if it's years ago, will be reawoken, will reawaken the here and now as you describe it. So this is a whole theme in phenomenology and phenomenological description that I'm just touching on briefly right now. But the point is that to describe carefully, you may find it's not something you have to try to force to happen. It can't be forced. If you really get in touch with description, you'll find the experience itself comes alive in the present moment, even more so. To what end? Well, subjectively, and by subjectively, I mean for you as an individual person, as an individual subject, what's in it is to be more present with and to be more openly curious in a meaningful way about the way the meditative experience was given, whether it was pleasant, whether it was unpleasant, to really be curious about the depths of what's happening with you in your practice, with an attitude of open expectancy about more meaningfulness, more meaning showing itself to you as you describe. More meaning that up until this moment was implied, it was implicit. But now as you turn your attention to describing, you may find, oh, wow, there's more that more is happening here. So again, as you describe, meanings that were implicit start to emerge, and they become or can become contemplatively clarified in the here and now. As my old mentor in phenomenology, Amadeo Giorgi, said, in practicing phenomenology in this way, you see more, you begin to see more. So that is all what's in it for you as an individual. What about intersubjectively? What about with others, right? So the reason intersubjectively to describe meditative experiences is because there's an enriching quality and an enlivening quality that is shared when you share your descriptions with a circle of fellow practitioners. So by circle of fellow practitioners or community of fellow travelers in meditation, what I'm talking about is would be referred to as Sangha in Buddhism, or sometimes Halka, the Sufi circle, right, in Sufism. In sharing descriptions the way we do, essential commonalities of in meditative practice can more easily be recognized and shared, and an experiential understanding deepens among the group with whom you're sharing that. And that might be because I'm listening to your description, and your description takes my own experience further, right? Because you've seen something, you've reflected on something, you've seen more, and I'm like, wow, that captures something that I had sort of gotten, but now I get even more the depth of what I'm experiencing in meditative practice. So that's one way it can go. Alternatively, you may be experiencing something that I have no idea about it yet. Like it's not happening for me when I meditate, what you're talking about. But the fact that you're describing it richly and in detail opens me up imaginatively, not to what is supposed to happen for me, but for what might possibly happen in the future in my own practice. And that opens up the horizon, we would say, for what's possible. So that's also enriching, right? So in Itlaq Foundation, um, description feeds the community of fellow practitioners. And the examples I was just giving is in terms of shared insight, conceptual clarity, like clarity about what is occurring, what are the underlying structures of what's occurring in meditative practice. And where this goes is with all of that is an increased ability to navigate altered states of consciousness. All of that insight, that expansive or expanded sense of possibility, and the ability to contemplatively reflect on one's own shifts in awareness and practice, all yield a greater ability to navigate if and when you do experience altered states. So it's all training in that regard, description. So I think we would say that solitary meditative practice taken together with description is preparatory for the kind of intimate dialogue and companionship that classically in Sufism is known as sohbat or sahaba, right? Spiritual companionship, spiritual friendship, sometimes it's translated as, right? So it's building that shared dialogue about what's occurring that is part of having companionship and fellow travelers along the way. And that feeds and supports what Sufism calls spiritual wayfaring, seri suluk or serwa suluk, depending on your source. Thanks.